Hi, it's Ileana, and today I am going to be talking about Kauai. In Hawaii, my experiences there. So I had gone to Hawaii in 2007 because I felt a profound call to visit the Guardians. And I didn't know who the Guardians were at the time. And the Guardians are Lemurians. They're Atlanteans. They are beings who used to inhabit the islands of Hawaii. And for me in particular, it was Kauai that I was being called to go to because I felt the Guardians were there. And I felt that I would get a profound activation. And when I went there, it was so beautiful. There's so many plant gardens there. There's Waimea Canyon, such beautiful beaches, like pristine blue waters, blue skies, white sand. Specifically, I went to Kauai. That's the island that I was drawn to. There's also Maui. There's the Big Island. There's many islands in Hawaii, but I was drawn to go to Kauai because that was one of the Lemurian places where they had lived back then, Lemuria and Mu. And I just received messages. And what I was told was, you will know what you will need to learn in the future. Trust to find the best teachers. Ask them all the right questions. Ask them why, ask them when, and ask them how. And they will always give you the right answers. And these are human teachers. So this is how I later found my shaman teacher, my Reiki teacher, my Wiccan teacher or Wicca. But I had spoken psychically to the Guardians first. And those are beings, they're Lemurians. They're beings that had lived there during the time of Lemuria, Mu, and also Atlantis. So for me, it was quite profound to communicate with them. And when I was in Waimea Canyon, I had taken a helicopter ride, and it was very high to see all those waterfalls where Jurassic Park had been shot as a movie. So I got to see so many beautiful things, and I got to take photos from the helicopter. And I was told that this would be an activation point. This is where my spiritual journey was to begin. This is my activation, literally, of my soul travels. And I felt this activation and attunement, and I was only in my mid-20s back then. I wasn't disclosing anything. I wasn't talking about anything specifically. I knew I had memories of past life experiences in Atlantis, and that I had been in Antarctica, and that I had communicated with the Andromedans, Pleiadians, and Arcturians. But I did not know that I was connected to the Guardians, to the Lemurians. Even though I have not had past lives in Lemuria, I feel a profound connection to Kauai and Hawaii. And they have natural portal systems there. There's portals in the water, there's portals in the jungle space and in the foliage. They have forests too on the islands, and they have the beaches. So there's natural portal systems that are connected to the ley lines, just like there's portal systems in Peru, natural ones. And there's the sacred abbey of the Brotherhood of the Seven Rays, where Brother Philip stayed, and where he was taught about the golden sun disk of Mu. So the Atlanteans had gone to Peru after Atlantis fell. And this is where Lemurians went to, and the beings of Mu as well. So Lemuria also was in Peru. Peru was higher. So the diluvian water plains, they didn't reach Peru. And they decided to have the Brotherhood of the Seven Rays, the mystery school by Lake Titicaca, and to hide the golden sun disk of Mu under Lake Titicaca in the sacred abbey. So all of this is connected, me being activated by the guardians, and then me being led to Peru, Amaru Muru, which has a huge Stargate portal system, that carved door in the mountain beside Lake Titicaca, and the keyhole. And this is where the Meldakian tunnel systems are, and where the portal technology is, wormhole portal technology. And all this wormhole technology is interconnected to the natural portals in Egypt, in Hawaii, in Tibet, the Romanian Sphinx, in the Pacific Northwest, in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. There's portal systems here everywhere. And I've always gone to places that had the natural portals, that had some remnants left of Atlantis and Lemuria. So I've always been energetically connected to finding these portal systems and energetically sensing their frequencies and connecting to the beings who had been using these portal systems. So the book, Secret of the Andes and the Golden Sun Disk of Mu by Brother Philip, this book, it taught me about Peru, and it taught me about the Golden Sun Disk of Mu, and that Lemurians had been in Peru, and Lemurians had been in other places like the Mayan lands, the Atlanteans, Lemurians, and the Mu. There had been 3 advanced civilizations. And this book really does describe about these 3 civilizations. To me, it describes it perfectly. So I am going to read the passage from the book about the Golden Sun Disk of Mu. This is from the PDF file that I had found. So yeah, it's very interesting. So the Golden Sun Disk was held by ropes of pure gold in a shrine in the greatest temple of divine light of the motherland of Mu. It was the gigantic golden disk of the sun. Before it, on an altar, which was a pillar carved out of solid stone, there blazed the eternal white light of the crystalline Maxine flame, the divine, limitless light of creation. About 30,000 BC, the Maxine light went out on the altar because of the evil of some of the priest scientists of Great Mu, similar to what happened in Atlantis. The sun disk remained in its shrine, however, until the time of the final destruction and submergence of 10 to 12,000 BC. As was said before, this disk was not merely used as an object of adoration, nor was it the symbolic representation of our solar sun. It was also a scientific instrument, and the secret of its power came originally out of the dim past in the time of the elder race, Bell race, the giant race of beings, otherwise perhaps known as the Elohim, who are connected to the ancient space ark ships under Lake Vostok in Antarctica and other space ark ships being activated in Brazil, in Peru, in Egypt, Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, and other places, as well as on the moon, Mars, Neptune, Saturn, Venus, Mercury. So, and the L race are descendants of the ancient builder races, and they have outposts on Venus that are still active. And they have something like sun disks that show the world histories of different planets, planetary histories of animals, of different beings, their genetic history, where they came from in different solar systems, who created our universe and other universes. So the elder race, the Elohim, or otherwise known as the Els, ELS, they were part of our creation, of us being seated on earth. They're ancient civilizations. So it says here that the golden sun disk of Mu was an object and part of adoration because it served in ritualistic temple services as a focus or point of concentration for those meditating. It also served as a symbolic representation of the great central or cosmic sun, which in turn symbolizes the creator. As a scientific instrument, it was used in connection with a complex system of mirrors of pure gold, reflectors and lenses to produce healing in the bodies of those who were inside the temple of light. Indeed, that is why it was called Temple of Divine Light. Besides all these functions, the sun disk was a focal point for concentration of a dimensional quality. So it says that it's a focal point for concentration of a dimensional quality. When the disk was struck by a priest scientist who understood its operation, it would set certain vibratory conditions, which could even bring about great earthquakes. And if continued long enough, might bring about a change in the rotation of the earth itself. When attuned to a person's particular frequency pattern, I'm assuming that's DNA as well, it could transport this person wherever he wished to go merely by the mental picture he or she created. It was therefore an object of transportation. So I think this golden sun disk of Mu was genetically coded to certain individuals. And I think some of the ancient space arc ships have similar technology like this on them, including holographic technology and crystalline technology. The golden sun disk of Mu was not made of ordinary gold, but was transmuted gold and unusual in its qualities, in that it was a translucent metal similar, evidently, to the metal you can almost look through of the UFOs. Lord Mu brought the sun disk with him when he journeyed to Lake Titicaca, and it was placed in a subterranean temple at the monastery of the Brotherhood of the Seven Rays. Here it was used not only by the students of life daily, but also by the masters and saints from the mystery schools throughout the world, so that they might be teleported back and forth to sit in council or to partake of some transmission ceremony. So these people who went to Peru, they're the remnants of the Atlanteans and the Lemurians and the beings of Mu. And this is the technology that they brought to Peru. When the Incas came to Peru, and come they did, for they were not native Quechua Indians, but came from a land across the Pacific, they established a highly spiritual society on top of the ruins of the great culture that had belonged to the colonial empire of Lemuria. The high priests of the sun of Tawanatsoyo, the name of the Inca Empire, built their Quarancacha, or Temple of the Sun, exactly on top of an older structure dating from very remote times. From ancient records in their homeland across the Pacific, they learned of the golden sun disk of Mu, and they knew it had been removed from the doomed continent and taken to a new land where Lord Mu had founded an inner retreat or sanctuary. So it's quite interesting what this information is. It's so interesting. And there's the history. So once in Peru, the Inca high priests searched long for the disc, but were never able to locate it. However, when they had reached the place on the spiritual pathway where they could use the disc to the benefit of all their people, the native indigenous tribes they had amalgamated into an empire as it had been used on Mu. Then it was presented to them for their daily use in their temple of the sun at Cusco. The Inca emperor at the time was a divine mystic or saint, and he had made a pilgrimage to the monastery at Lake Titicaca, and there Amaru, a spiritual head or abbot of the brotherhood, gave the disc to the emperor. Several brothers from the lake were directed to journey with him to the capital of the empire, Cusco. Here the disc was placed in a shrine that had been prepared for it, and it was secured with golden ropes as it had been held in ancient Lemuria. Even today, the holes through which these ropes passed can be seen at the convent of Santo Domingo in Cusco, which is built on top of the pre-Inca Sun Temple. The Incas called their temple of the sun Coricancha, which means place of gold or garden of gold. This was because of the magnificent solid gold life-sized figures of men, animals, plants, and flowers that were placed in a real garden of gold adjacent to the sun temple. So it was adjacent to the sun temple. But the priest scientists called the temple Amaru Concha. On some of the stories at Santo Domingo today, so there's stories, and these stories are depicted on the stones at Santo Domingo today. You can still see carved serpents, Amarus, and that is the reason they say that some knew the temple as Amaru Concha, or a place of the serpents. And this is interesting. It's hard to know if those beings, some of them were serpents or thought of serpents, as some of them had shape-shifting abilities. A lot of different galactic beings had created Atlantis, Lemuria, and Mu. Some of them were humanoid, some not so much. So these legends are interesting. However, that is not the real reason. Amaru is a form of Amaru, which is one of the names of Lord Muru, Aramu, or Amaru. So it's either Aramu or Amaru. There are large snakes in the Andes, which are still called Amarus. So it could also mean snakes, literally the snakes that are in Peru. Quetzalcoatl, the plumed serpent of the Aztec Empire in Mexico. And I can't always pronounce this correctly. Quetzalcoatl, I think it's pronounced Quetzalcoatl, the plumed serpent of the Aztec Empire in Mexico. Therefore, the Temple of the Sun at Cusco was named for Amaru Muru, head of the monastery at Lake Titicaca, for it was he who enabled them to have at last the golden disc in their sun temple. Within this greater temple, there were smaller temples or shrines dedicated to the moon, the 12 planets, stars, and to the 7 rays. So Mexico, Quetzalcoatl, is very much connected to Peru, to Lemuria, to Atlantis. The Brotherhood of the 7 Rays became the leading force in the spiritual life of the Incas, and they learned the use of the disc from ancient records left by the wise pre-Incas, who were Lemurian colonists. The disc remained in the Coricancha at Cusco until word reached the priests that Don Francisco Pizarro had landed in Peru. Knowing full well what was going to take place, sorrowfully, they removed the disc from the Cusco shrine and returned it to its place in the subterranean temple at the monastery. The Spanish conquerors never saw it. They didn't get to see it because it would have been used for wrong purposes. Instead of healing, it would have been used for destruction, which is not what this disc is supposed to do. It can, but it's not supposed to do that. On January 21st, 1956, beloved Archangel Michael of the Sun gave an address at his retreat at Banff in the Canadian Rockies. The following is an excerpt. So it was done in the Canadian Rockies. Apparently, Brother Philip had connections, not to just Peru, but to the people running the retreats in Banff. Canadian Rockies. I'm from Canada. Banff is several provinces away from me, closer to Alberta. I'm in the Pacific side of it. Many of the temples used on Atlantis and Lemuria have been raised into the etheric realms. Someday they will be lowered again when man is spiritually ready to receive them. It has happened that one or more of the precious stones used in the construction of these temples have been put in the hands of a high priest or head of a spiritual order, where they form a connection with the celestial hierarchy. There are several dozens of the stones from my own temple in the possession of individuals at various points on the Earth's surface today. Sounds a lot like the 13 crystal skulls. Perhaps they were. The golden sun disk of Mu is one of the precious stones referred to by Lord Michael, and it was put in the hands of the head of the Brotherhood of the Seven Rays, Muru or Amaru Muru. The disk will remain at Lake Titicaca until that day when man is spiritually ready to receive it and to use it once again. On that day, the golden disk will be taken out of its subterranean chamber and placed high above the monastery of the Brotherhood. For many miles, the pilgrims of the new dawn will see it once again, reflecting the glorious rays of the sun. Coming from it will be an undeniable tone of purest harmony that will bring many followers of light up the foot-worn path to the ancient gate of the Brotherhood of the Seven Rays, and they shall enter the valley of the blue moon for fellowship in the Father. And that's left open to interpretation, because again, this is a message from Archangel Michael or Michael. So I think that the golden sun disk of Mu is part of advanced ancient technologies, and it's connected to the crystal skulls, to the 13 crystal skulls. One of the crystal skulls was found in Mexico, and others will be found when the time is right, according to legend. Although the golden sun disk of Mu is made from gold, it's connected to the crystalline essences of the crystal skulls that are supposed to protect this planet and its orbit, so that the sun does not counteract the frequencies of the electromagnetic field, keeping it stable around the planet. This is what the golden sun disk of Mu does, and so do the 13 crystal skulls, which are made out of pure crystalline technology. It's not just crystals you find today, clear quartz. These are different types of crystalline materials from which the crystal skulls were carved. No one can carve anything even remotely close to how the 13 crystal skulls were created, because they weren't created by man carving them. They were created by specialized crystalline laser technology, from what I understand and know of this technology. When I was up on the L ship, the Akashin, I was able to see some of the history of the 13 crystal skulls and how they were carved. And again, it was done with crystalline laser technology. It wasn't carved by humans. So those crystal skulls are quite different from what we make today with the crystals that come from the earth. Just to clarify that and what the differences are about the crystal skulls, And the legend of the crystal skulls is true. They are real 13 crystal skulls that help to activate certain frequencies to keep the planet safe, Earth. So I just wanted to share this information, a little bit of what's there in Hawaii. For some people who've had past lives as Lemurians in Hawaii, going there is like an activator point to remember your human ancient Earth history or your galactic history, to connect to the guardians, to connect to the portal systems. And for other people, going to Peru will awaken their memories of Lemuria, Mu, Atlantis, either Hawaii, Peru, or other sacred special places where these colonies had existed on ancient Earth, going back, I think, 1 billion years ago, or even 2 million years ago, according to what was mentioned in Brother Philip's book. So I wanted to discuss this and sort of talk a little bit more about the sacred ancient technologies in Peru. And the Meldakians had gone to Peru and built the Meldakian tunnel systems with a lot of holographic technology underneath the Amaru Star Gateway portal. And I astrally traveled there and got to see this stuff. They have supercomputers, crystalline supercomputers, holographic interfaces, similar kind of crystalline discs. Some of them are made out of metallics. Some is crystalline interfaces, and you can see planetary histories. You can see past life stuff from yourself. It's almost like accessing the Akashic records just through a holographic interface system of crystalline technologies on these discs, including the golden sun disk of Mu. So all of this stuff is interconnected, and we're finally getting to hear about it. So thank you so much, and namaste.